By 1911, New York City's garment industry was booming. Inside the Ash Building, hundreds of workers, mostly young Italian and Jewish immigrant women and girls, spent their days densely packed into the 8th, ninth, and 10th floors, operating sewing machines to produce women's blouses. For survivors like Rose Friedman, the reality of the work was grueling. These women worked 52-hour weeks, clocking 9 hours on weekdays and 7 hours on Saturdays. In return, they earned between $7 and $12 a week. This floor plan of the 9th floor shows how owners Max Blank and Isaac Harris engineered the layout. They actively locked the doors to the stairwells and exits. They did this to force workers through a single checkpoint, to search their purses for stolen fabric, and to keep union organizers out. The Triangle factory was meticulously calibrated to maximize industrial output and strictly monitor the workforce. Management systematically removed any physical margin for human safety. At 4:40 p.m. on Saturday, March 25th, the workday was ending on the 8th floor. Under a cutter's table, an unextinguished match fell into a scrap bin containing 2 months' worth of dry, accumulated textile cuttings. It ignited instantly. A bookkeeper on the 8th floor managed to warn the 10th floor by telephone, but there was no audible alarm system in the building. As survivor Yetta Lubitz later recounted, the 9th floor received no call at all. For the workers on the 9th floor, the very first warning that something was wrong was the physical arrival of the flames. In less than 3 minutes, a localized fire in a scrap bin overtook the entire physical infrastructure of the factory, trapping hundreds of people inside. Workers rushed the flimsy, poorly anchored external fire escape. Under their weight, the metal buckled and collapsed, dropping 20 victims to the concrete. Look at that drop. For workers trapped on the 9th floor, the street was nearly 100 feet down. Inside, elevator operators Joseph Zito and Gaspar Mortellaro made a desperate attempt at rescue. They plunged their elevator cars into the burning shafts 3 times, pulling dozens of trapped people down to safety. This cross-section shows the elevator shaft acting like a chimney, funneling intense heat upward until the metal guide rails buckled. Desperate workers jumped into the empty shaft. The impact of falling bodies warped the cars, jamming them in place and halting the rescue. The stairwell doors were padlocked. The fire escape was destroyed. The elevators were immobilized. The remaining workers were forced into a terrifying binary choice: burn alive or jump. On the street below, a massive crowd of bystanders, police, and journalists gathered, looking up at the roaring cornice of flames. The fire department arrived within minutes, but their equipment was entirely inadequate for a high-rise. Their horse-drawn ladders, fully extended, stopped at the 7th floor. The water couldn't reach the blaze. Reporter William Gunn Shepard was standing on the pavement. He wrote about the visceral reality of what happened next, stating, "I learned a new sound that day, a sound more horrible than description can picture, the thud of a speeding, living body on a stone sidewalk." Lewis Waldman, who would later become a New York State Assemblyman, was also in the crowd. He recalled the hysteria as onlookers watched girls appear at reddened windows, hesitate for a terrified moment, and plunge to the street. 62 people jumped or fell from the windows. The public stood pinned behind police cordons, forced to watch the limits of their modern city fail in real time. 146 people died. Most were young immigrant women and girls. In the days that followed, devastated families lined up at Charities Pier to identify the burned and mangled remains. Factory owners Max Blank and Isaac Harris were indicted on charges of manslaughter. During the trial, their attorney confused survivor Kate Alterman, making her repeat her testimony until she stumbled, destroying her credibility. Blank and Harris were fully acquitted. The legal outcome infuriated the city. A massive memorial meeting was held at the Metropolitan Opera House, attended by the Women's Trade Union League. Activist Rose Schneiderman took the stage, arguing charity was useless. Workers must save themselves through political movement. The acquittal proved her point. Without systemic political leverage, the lives of immigrant workers held no legal value to the state. Frances Perkins was one of the helpless bystanders on Washington Place that afternoon. Watching the bodies fall radicalized her. She dedicated the rest of her life to labor reform, eventually becoming the United States Secretary of Labor. Perkins and other Iolinguses channeled their trauma into political mobilization, forming a committee on public safety. They successfully lobbied politicians in Albany to create the Factory Investigating Commission, tasked with aggressively documenting industrial hazards. This blueprint comparison shows the result of their work. The commission's findings led to 38 new laws. These regulations mandated automatic sprinklers, required multiple unlocked exit doors, and capped the hours women and children could work. The disaster also spurred the immediate creation of the American Society of Safety Professionals, which worked to institutionalize these industrial safety standards nationwide. Every illuminated emergency exit, every outward opening door, every mandatory fire drill exists for a very specific reason. They are permanent, living monuments built upon the ashes of the people lost.